Welcome back to our session. I hope we had a good break for a few minutes to refill our coffee cups. I'd like to give you a brief overview of what is the purpose of this roundtable following the highlight summary that took place previously. So we have gathered a pool, invited actually a pool of international experts. Some of them are part of the project, some are affiliated in the sense of the advisory board, and some others were invited on purpose to give us their feedback. You can see the list of all the quality panelists that are required to make a short comment of about 5 minutes each for an open session to questions that will follow right after. So we'll give you just what the questions were sent. All panelists were sent 2 main questions so that there is a common ground of for discussion. And in fact, one question was whether you see any benefit of this project, or what is the most important, in your opinion, outcome, if there is one, but also what is, if anything that was not pursued as much and needs to be worked further. What are the challenges to move forward, and what are the barriers towards achieving impact, which, by the way, of course, it's what we all aim for. So without further ado, I would like to invite Jingje Wu from the World Bank to give us her thoughts around these 2 questions. Jingje, thanks very much for.
Thank you, Tassos. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jingje Wu. I'm a consultant, part of the task team of the Global Program for Super Schools and the World Bank. So first, I would like to congratulate the team and also all the partners on the knowledge produced and the tours produced for the safer schools in Nepal. And I think among the results so far, I'd like to highlight the most important outcome, in my opinion, would be the progress made in developing affordable and feasible solutions applicable for solvents of vulnerable and remote schools in Nepal. After the 2015 earthquake, our task team supported the Department of Education conducted a structural integrity and damage assessment, which is CEDA, for about 18,000 school buildings in the 14 most affected districts by the earthquake. So based on the data collected in CEDA, we identified that almost 50% of the buildings assessed are unreinforced masonry, with a major portion being stone masonries. And on top of that, these vulnerable school buildings are usually located in remote areas. This means that we not only need to work with limited financial resources in countries like Nepal, but also limited technical resources, such as locally available material in these remote areas. In this light, we believe that innovations on affordable and replicable engineering solutions considering the local context will be the key to reach scale in improving the safety of Nepalese school buildings. And looking ahead, we believe that the next step would be to build resilience over time in the country to ensure that when the next similar earthquake comes, the toll will be much less. This will require our continuous joint efforts and more holistic solutions. And when we understood the challenges, we believe will lie in 4 main aspects. The first, we think, would be the financial mechanism. We know that the financial resources will always be limited, and under this budget constrained environment, innovative financing solutions will allow the scaling of school infrastructure plans. Especially, this is especially true when we consider all the other education priorities during the recovery phase of this current COVID-19 situation. And the second point for next step I'd like to highlight is to build local capacity on school infrastructure management. both technical and management capacities needs to be strengthened at national and subnational level to successfully coordinate with all partners and actors in the plan and implement large-scale interventions. And this point also include engaging school communities in capacity building activities as a key stakeholder. It is very important for the school community to develop more knowledge and awareness of disaster risk reduction interventions and resilient school infrastructure. And the third point on the next step, we believe, will be the continuous work that are needed in our research and technical advances to translate knowledge into actual tools to support local stakeholders. This means our technical efforts needs to be continuously geared toward understanding and responding to the actual needs and context of the local school portfolio, and to continue to develop tangible solutions and tools. And the last but not least, we think it is very necessary that we develop integrated solutions beyond safety. Earthquakes, we know earthquakes impact the life safety of our school communities, but we cannot forget that it also impacts the education service and learning outcome of the children. How can we improve the quality and resilience of education service and learning environment along with infrastructure solutions, we believe will be a priority as next step. With that, I think I give the floor to the next speaker.
Thank you very much, Ginger, for your quality input. We'll come back during the Q&A to these important points. I would like to invite Hayley Creek from Arab International Development, which is a key partner of the project.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be on this call. My name is Hayley Grix and I work at Arab, and I lead our work in social infrastructure. And as Tassos said, we are a key partner on this project, and Arab have been extremely fortunate to contribute to and inputted into all 5 work packages on this project. But we feel that the biggest impact, or one of the biggest impacts this project has made, is through the work that's been undertaken on work package 5, the resilient education, where the resilience of the education systems is being explored. This is making a huge step change beyond safer school infrastructure towards resilience, but also to note that it's also broader than just resilient infrastructure. We all know that resilience is the ability of an individual, community, society or system exposed to shocks and stresses to resist, absorb, adapt and recover from its effects in a timely and effective manner. And this piece of work looked at the education system in its totality to understand the factors that may impact delivery of delivering the primary function of schools in Nepal, which is the provision and the continuous quality education within a safer environment. In the context of schools specifically, the ability for them to survive shocks and stresses, such as flooding or earthquakes, is frequently described in terms of the ability of the school or the building or the site to withstand the effects of such events and the safety of those components. However, there are many other factors, as Shinzu has just highlighted, which influence the ability of a school system to deliver education, including social and economic considerations. This research was unique in that it focused on understanding and defining the complex system of the different elements that hindered the delivery of continuous education services in Nepal. In Nepal, the school improvement plans is a fundamental mechanism to identify those budgets for improvements in schools. And we felt that this holistic approach is important to help schools in Nepal understand what those interventions are and how they can be prioritised within the school improvement plan and other investment mechanisms to contribute to ensuring how children can continue to receive their education even when subject to changing shocks and stresses. Regarding the next steps and the key challenges, we feel that there are probably two key next steps in this area. The first relates to the current global pandemic that we are all very aware of at present. Our research highlighted that the common metric for continuity of education is typically the number of days that students attend a school. But the impact of COVID and its as a global shock is impacting the continuity of education, and it's changed the landscape of schools globally. As a result, this means that the applicability of some of those metrics to measure the resilience of schools may need to be reviewed. So, for example, measuring days in attendance in a school as a metric for continuous education. The second is an opportunity to widen the scope of this research. There's an opportunity to undertake further research to understand better the resilience of education systems at national and or regional level, as opposed to just at the school level, and to take more of a portfolio-wide approach. The system may well have different elements with different linkages at those kind of more larger scales. But also there's an opportunity to widen the research just beyond Nepal to see what elements of the systems are common in schools globally and what varies according to local context. Both of these steps are involved taking kind of, huge pieces of research at global level, which in itself we think is a huge challenge, but an absolutely fundamental one and a very interesting one. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Hayley. I'm sure you could comment on all work packages, given that Arup has contributed in almost everything. This was a very interesting outline. I would like now to invite Yadav finally from Save the Children Nepal, after stressing that the contribution of Save the Children UK and Nepal has been tremendous in reaching out to communities. Yadav?
Thank you, Professor Tassos. Yeah, my name is Yadav Mainali. I'm representing Save Children Nepal Country Office. So while talking about the most important outcome of this project, so Save Children has been contributed for work package 2 and work package 5. So I'll only consider this work package. So the most important outcome of this project, in simple word, is school assessment tool, that is a quick visual inspection of school building and tool for educational community resilience assessment. So Government of Nepal has already endorsed National Comprehensive School Safety Minimum Package, and which is aligned with the Sendai framework. So educational community resilience assessment tool will be complement to evaluate the status of comprehensive school safety minimum package in schools. So probably this tool is the first tool in Nepal to measure the educational community resilience. So this tool is developed as an index of any educational community of the school. And the self-assessment of the resilience can be conducted at regular interval, let's say yearly or 2 times a year. And a set of activities can be incorporated in school's annual plan, school's improvement plan, and policy and regulation can be updated based on the report and the findings. And even local government, they can include in their plan and policies, and budget can be allocated to address the gaps and issues that is identified through the assessment. While talking about next step, so next step can be like transferring or promoting these tools at different levels and among with different stakeholders, so that it can be widely used and updated based on their experience, and the school community can be benefited. So that schools' overall resilience can be considered even in the school level and the community level. The challenges of this can be providing orientation or training to the school at a large scale can be challenges considering the geographical difficulties and the location where technology doesn't work properly in Nepal. So that can be one challenge, and other can be like the assessment. If the assessment is done, then what's next? Like the managing the resource to address the gap, to address the identified issue. Though there is the scope to work with the communities and the local government, but if like urgent issues is identified, then community or school they want to address that issues immediately. So resource can be another challenge. So thank you so much.
Yadav. I would like to now invite Professor Premnath Maski, who has also been a key figure in our project, and he's sitting in several committees. He has supervised the tests in Nepal. We're looking forward to hearing your view, Professor.
Thank you very much. So my name is Premnath Maski. I'm from Institute of Engineering, University in Nepal. Without further explanation, so I will just answer the two questions given to us. Now, the first is actually the most important, let us say, outcome of this SAFER project, I think, is the formation of global forum for research and development, which are related with multiple disciplines. That is the most important outcome. And the project, in my opinion, has been successful to establish the intrinsic prerequisites which are required for the seismic resilient school buildings typical to Nepal. Now, the construction or reconstruction, whatever we say, including retrofitting if necessary of such buildings for schools in Nepal is now possible, even for future earthquake events, considering the sustainability with efficient use of local materials and technology. So now, the impact of SAFER project in Nepal will be the multidisciplinary establishment of multidisciplinary consortium of engineers and different experts from different walks of life for the SAFER and seismic resilient construction of school buildings, which is very important for Nepali children in Nepal. Now, the problems might be, as my colleagues also mentioned, I may have to repeat the same thing, that we have to take into consideration the local community for implementation of whatever we do, whatever we plan. And so we have to take into confidence of the local community, local government, like, the district office or the local municipalities or village offices, etc. And other challenges for the successful implementation of this project also include, let's say, the determination of seismic vulnerability of the school buildings of Nepal, or repair or construction of typical school buildings with necessary seismic strengthening if needed, with the use of local materials and technology. And alternative construction material could be efficiently used, considering the availability and also accessibility and acceptability of these things for the safe buildings and safety of the children in Nepal. And so in that regard, as I put that in the form of some questions, also we have to take care of, let's say, regular maintenance, which is lagging all the time. So once some structure is made and never look back at how it is being maintained regularly. So that is the most important. And also capacity building of the local community and local government is very necessary. So I think these are challenges which we have to take into consideration. Thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you very much, Professor. All points well taken. We'll come back later on. I would like now to invite Dr. Yubraj Paudral from which is the Deputy Project Director at the center level of Project Implementation Unit of the Government of Nepal. We're very keen to hear your views because you're not directly a partner. You're kind of overseeing what we're doing. So we're very, very interested to hear your feedback.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon and namaste everyone. I'm Yubraj Paudal, Deputy Project Director, National Reconstruction Authority, looking after school reconstruction after 2015 Gorkha, Nepal. It is great honor and pleasure to be here today and to discuss this important topic. Thank you again for supporting us and showing keen interest on school safety issues of Nepal. This is really help us to improve the disaster resiliency of schools and community at large. School safety is a broader issue and all over the world. We need to talk it holistically. It is a multi-stakeholder issue as well. When we talk about the safety of the schools and resilience of the schools, an integrated and holistic approach needs to be developed as a program and implement accordingly. I really impressed with the Safer School team efforts. The program is designed holistically and try to address the most of the issues related with the seismic safety and resiliency of the schools. All outcomes are equally relevant and useful. The hazard mapping is a continuous process, and this can be strengthened based on the rigorous research in the days to come as well. But however, we do not have our own model and attenuation relationship that may some the challenges that we have. Regarding the vulnerability assessment tool, we have been working on it since a long time, after 2015 as well. Myself, when I was in the Department of Education, and the team from World Bank, leading from Ms. Karina and her team, and of course the support from Arup as a consultant, we developed SIRA, what we talk already. These are the tools, the very important, and to develop the priority investment plan for the reconstruction of the school building after 2015 Gorkha in Nepal. The developed assessment tool from the SAFER project is the outcome from the research, and hope this is a more scientific and more simplified and more sophisticated than the existing tool. I think so, because this is based on the research. But for me, the most important outcome of the SAFER project could be the develop innovative low-cost, sustainable base isolation technique for the construction of new school building in Nepal. This could be one of the low-cost technology implementable to the rural areas of Nepal. We know that Nepal has been expecting great earthquake in future. Loss from the earthquake is mainly due to the collapse of the structure at the time of the earthquake. If we can at least protect the structure itself and make them at least up to the life safety, then we can protect the large number of the life of the people. I have not gone more detail on these technicalities. My simple observation is that the developed one is not exactly the new idea, but it's new for our context and proven analytically and experimentally using the materials similar to our Nepalese context. It is innovative technique and could be one of the appropriate solutions to minimize the structural damage of the buildings and make the structure resilient from the future earthquake disaster in Nepal. The next step would be the implementation of the research output as a pilot project in rural areas of Nepal and replicate it to the other areas based on the feedback from the pilot project. The challenge, of course, we have the many challenges when we talk about the implementation part for a country like Nepal. It takes time, and it is because of the education level, awareness level of the community, and good governance in disaster response of the country. Of course, it depends on the country strategy, human resources, and financing of the disaster. These are some points that we need to take care when we implement some of the new the ideas and projects. The challenge could be the technology itself, how we are going to convince the people, and how equally that it's important to mainstreaming with the government policy program, because we have been doing some research, but if the government will not take it very seriously, then it limit up to the research only. So we need to have very good coordination with the government partners as well. And proper coordination and collaboration is very important. And third point will be the technical manpower, for the implementation. Capacity building is the other challenge, because we have, the technical people, but the capacity for implementation of those kind of, the new innovative ideas could be, that it takes time. So we need to invest, on those, part very well in the systematic way. And the fourth could be the acceptance from the private sector, community, and the government. This is the acceptability is the major concern when we start some new technology. And of course, not at the least the fifth, the affordability of for the implementation, because it may need some extra budget, extra cost. When you talk new ideas, for example, some the simple technique for base isolation. So it should be economically affordable. the acceptance for the wider to address the wider community. I think these are some challenges that we have. Thank you so much and for inviting me and then giving me this opportunity and put my views in this very important gathering. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. This has been really an excellent input that is very useful for us to take our research further, of course, in collaboration with you and all other partners. Let us now pass to Professor Prachand Pradhan, who has supervised a number of tests in Kathmandu that help us implement the large-scale testing in Nepal, in the UK, I'm sorry. Prachand?
Thank you, Tassos, and the entire SAFER team. This is Prachand Pradhan. I'm from Kathmandu University, from the Department of Civil Engineering. Well, regarding the opinion for this project, like SAFER project has a number of objectives, of course, and my objective was to do the test for the construction materials to get the mechanical and physical properties of various construction materials that are available nearby. In this context, the properties of construction materials were obtained through experiments that have been done in the Department of Civil Engineering. And then these experimental values, that whatever is obtained, may be directly used in the design purpose. However, you see nowadays, the design parameters, the values, the compressive strength, etc., whatever are the values that we usually used to believe is no more nowadays. For example, the compressive strength of brick has really deteriorated. When I did my experiment in the year 2011, 13 maybe, it used to be around 11 MPa for compressive strength for brick. Now it is appearing as 4, 4.5, something like that. So the compressive strength has degraded. And in the same manner, a lot of other construction materials also, the quality has degraded. And then since now those values that are available now, if we know these things and we implement this, then we get the real result rather than believing that the strength is somewhat and then appearing something else. So this is what I believe, that material strength and quality is degrading. So the industry which is driving, the industries are driving the construction materials nowadays. So we should understand that the real values, the strength that is now prevailing must be used in the design. That's what I would like to say. And then regarding the second question, what is the next step and what are the challenges? Well, in my opinion, the major challenge is the enforcement of the building code, code of practice, because though the paperwork and design is perfect, if the implementation is not, as per the drawing design, then the structure may not be safe. So the next step is to make people aware to use the building design code as far as possible, and also to make them understand engineering design is actually not that expensive as the public think. And also we have now NBC 105, which must be used correctly, because now we have already got a new NBC 100 improved version of NBC 105. So a lot of people will now need time to understand this code also, because we were used to with the previous one. Now a lot of values and parameters have changed and added. So the engineers will have this challenge to learn the code first and then implement it. And then apart from that, there are a lot of other challenges which I feel like, you see, nowadays, I've already told previously also, the construction materials are degrading, that their quality is getting degraded day by day. And not only that, the industry is driving the, the construction mode also. For example, nowadays we don't find mild steel in in the major main bar. So even the tour steel is kind of extinct. We are compelled to use the TMT bar. I don't mean to say TMT bar is not good or bad. This is another part of the story. But the thing is, as far as it is concerned with earthquake resistant design, we often teach our students that we would like to go to the more ductile material as far as possible. In the same manner, nowadays you see I've already told the brick strength has degraded extensively, significantly, and the sand also. Nowadays we don't find sand from the river. We have to get it from the sand mine, and when we use the sand from the sand mine, then it is mostly clay. Of course they do wash it, but they wash it once or maybe twice, but it's not sufficient. And as we have already obtained from the test results also, the results are quite it's not that much satisfactory. And another part is like we are getting cement from various countries, not only from Nepal. We get cement from China, from India, and somewhere else also maybe, and also of course from Nepal. But when we are using cements like that, probably, or we do not know how long the cements are being stored. The storage really matters. I mean to say, not only the method of storing, but also the duration of storing. So if the duration of storing is much more than, let's say, 1 or 2 months, then probably the cement strength would obviously degrade. But the users are not very much, they do not aware of these things, like the strength would degrade after that. So I think there are certainly various challenges, but we need to aware people, and once the engineers or the technical people as well as the bureaucrats know about these things and both come into a very good understanding that these things must be given priorities, we will overcome these problems. Thank you very much. This is all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Prachand, for this very pragmatic, realistic input. I would like now to pass to the Executive Director of NSET, Dr. Surya Narayan Stresta. NSET is another key partner for the project, involved in almost every work package that we have implemented, and we're very much looking forward to hearing feedback.
Hi, good afternoon, Tasos, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Tasos and the team from Bristol for including NSET in the project, and also thank World Bank and UK research institutions. First of all, regarding the most important outcome of this project, I think that this is a somehow a unique project, which built upon the existing research outcomes, existing data, and also did some level of new studies that's need-based and the context-based of Nepal. And third most important outcome I find is the generation of the development of some useful tools, such as the school assessment tool and such as the community resilience tool. So regarding the new data or new study, I find two very important results or outcomes obtained. One is the study on the geotechnical or the borehole study in Kathmandu, the CPT, new CPT borehole done for Kathmandu, which is as we all know, the geology or the soil of Kathmandu is unique, and so far much less has been done in this direction. So this is a very important research done in this direction. And also the other thing is together with a very sophisticated laboratory testing in Bristol, we could do some of the very simple experimental tests in Kathmandu, in laboratory in Tribhuvan University, Pulcho campus, as well as we created some test specimens in NSET premises on the local building technology on stone masonry buildings, and we could test the retrofitted building, the wall of retrofitted wall as well as non-retrofitted wall. So this is unique that we could do out of this project. And as I said, some of the very useful tools, generation of useful tools is also very important outcome of this study. Regarding the challenge or way forward, there are several challenges or the actions to be done for the future. But I find most important is um, there are several useful tools already developed through this project. But until and unless that those tools are used in the communities, those are not very useful. That's why those tools can be or should be used at the local level, at the municipalities and at the provincial levels and at the schools. So on that respect, we need to promote the use of the such as the school assessment tool, such as the community resilience tool at the local level. And perhaps for that, the project or the continuity of the project, we should think of creating some awareness and training materials on simplified awareness and training materials on the use of those tools developed by the project. As well as we need to develop perhaps the advocacy tools also, so that the developed tools, methods, new technologies can be institutionalized in our governance and in our education systems also. So advocacy materials may also be required. The second thing I am thinking is the repository of data and tools, how this data will be stored and how in the future we can build upon those already developed data and tools, how the researchers can continue with this data. This is also another very important aspect that we need to think of, and we need to have a mechanism where this data and these new tools can be continuously used by and continuously build upon those tools and data for doing further studies and for doing improvements. So this much I have to say in this forum. Thank you very much, Tasos.
Thank you very much for these important points. Indeed, first of all, the tests that were conducted by NSET and coordinated locally in Kathmandu are really unique as well, not only the ones we did in Bristol. And I would like to encourage the attendees to go and see the videos that have been prepared in the website for that. And secondly, I think you highlight the need for sustainability and the ability to hand over the tools to the local stakeholders for the solutions to be practically used. So we'll come back to this very soon. Our next quality panelist is Mr. Ima Narayan Stresta, who is the Joint Secretary and Chief of Education Planning and Development Section of the Government of Nepal. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining us. We're looking forward to hearing your views.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am Im Narayan Stresta, Deputy Director General of CHRD, that is Center for Education and Human Resource Development Center. This is one of the Department of Ministry of Education. Regarding the importance of this SAFER project in Nepal, the most usefulness of this SAFER project finding is the smart mobile apps tools for structural and resilience assessment of school communities. And this mobile app tool can be useful to find vulnerability of around 27,000 schools, infrastructure and education communities in Nepal. It can greatly help in setting priorities in intervention. And regarding the next step, one is the dissemination of this research outcome in wider level up to country level, and knowledge, skill and technology transfer to local communities for safe school construction. That is another next step. And use of research outcomes toward the risk assessment and risk mitigation intervention. And further coordination with the government to implement the research outcomes. And integration of research outcome with national education plan and programs, so that it will add value to implement national program more effectively. And there are many challenges. And availability of resource to implement the research outcome, that is one challenge. And implementation of developed low-cost seismic isolation methods targeting school buildings in Nepal, and need more rigorous discussion with Nepalese stakeholders especially with the government authority about the practicability, looking technical capacity and financial affordability in the context of Nepal. In Nepal, school assessment is very important. After Gorkha earthquake, structural integrity and damage assessment, SIDA, was done in 14 earthquake affected districts from support of World Bank. And outcomes of the assessment was implemented by government in ADB and JICA assisted school reconstruction project. And government has prepared a comprehensive school safety master plan as a part of SSDP, school development project, school sector development project, and which emphasize this type of assessment. But challenge is that capacity building of stakeholders, school communities. And government has prepared a minimum package based on school comprehensive school safety master plan. And government prepared has planned the structural integrity assessment for remaining other 46 districts. But it was planned to conduct SIA, structural integrity assessment in for 27,000 schools. It was planned. It was very important because in Nepal, community construct a school without the supervision of engineer, without consultation with engineers. Those buildings that constructed by communities, and those buildings are built using mud mortar at that time. But this, due to resource gap, this program has postponed. This is also one of the challenges for us. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. All this is noted. We'll discuss further in our Q&A. I would like now to cross the Atlantic again and connect to Andreas Stavridis, who is also a partner, and he has been involved in the test that we did in Bristol and also in Kathmandu. So Andreas, you've seen things from the inner loop, but please also give us your feedback.
Sure. So hi Tash, hi everyone. I would like to comment on overall the project. I mean, did tremendous work in very short time. I mean, we tend to not talk about that, but for research time, this has been very fast and very efficient. And the team has worked very hard on a number of topics. I will comment more on the work done by Nick's group and Anastasis on the low-cost isolation, because I'm more familiar with that. I was more involved with that part of the project, but that doesn't mean that the other work packages didn't do a very good job and didn't produce great results, as we saw earlier today. So going back a few years, when I talked to me about this and I read the proposal, I didn't even believe or expect that this can go very far. I mean, that part of the low-cost isolation, but I was very happy to be proven wrong. I mean, I saw the preparation, the tests, and I have a lot of expectations now. I mean, I think that once Arup works out the design details and incorporates local materials and practices that can be used in Nepali construction, I think that has quite a bit of potential for new construction. It will take collaboration from local authorities, governments. I mean, others kept saying the government has to buy in and enforce things. I think NSET has a key role to play here, similar to what they did with URM buildings in terms of retrofitting them. I think that they can lay the ground and take the lead in building some schools with this technology that will set the example. And then once the community sees that, hopefully they will buy in, and then that technology will go beyond school buildings. So, because a key issue with transferring all the knowledge that has been created is community to buy in. And sometimes that takes generation to go over to get it done. I mean, it has to go through school training, as Surya mentioned, of people. So it can be a very violent thing if that's imposed to everyone right off the bat. But if there are some examples constructed around the country and people see them, how they look, and they see how they work, maybe they can buy in, and maybe that can be more easily transitioned, so that there's more engineering to go into these buildings. Then another aspect that might be interesting that might need to be considered is once this the app or the assessment tools developed here identify a building as vulnerable, what's next? So there might need to be some continuation of this to find some strengthening methodologies or some retrofitting schemes that, again, respect the Nepali practice and the knowledge that's out there, and so that they can be implemented and strengthen the existing buildings, because there are a lot of school buildings in Nepal. So I think I'm done. Again, thank you very much for making me part of this. It has been a great experience.
Thanks very much, Andreas. Pleasure to work with you as ever. Now we're moving to China. Buongiorno, Bruno, ni hao in Chinese.
Ni hao, buongiorno.
Bruno is the Dean of Engineering of Fuzhou University and has been engaged in several field missions in Nepal and in China worldwide. Bruno?
Thank you, Tassos. Grazie. And thank you to everybody for organizing this workshop and inviting me today. And good morning, afternoon, evening to all the friends from all the world involved in this project. I'm really impressed by the work done in so short time by all the Bristol team, the team in Nepal, and the team from Arup, the team from US. So all the people involved in this project. It's not easy to do it, and it's also not easy to see a project that really gives outcomes. Many times there are projects with really not really outcomes for the local people. And in this way, this project seems to be really different. But going more in specific, I'm also, as Andreas, interested in the work package 3, particularly in the low-cost seismic protection using sliding foundations. I want to remember that in China in 2008, there was the Sichuan, how it's called, Wenchuan earthquake. And in that earthquake, there were more than 4,000, almost 5,000 students died. And a lot of school buildings destroyed, totally destroyed. So after that earthquake in 2009, the Chinese government decided to assess all the school buildings, and in the following step to retrofit or to rebuild all the school buildings in China. And I'm speaking about middle school and primary schools. So after that, due to that reason, many buildings in China have been retrofitted, particularly using seismic isolation. But the seismic isolation were mostly done with rubber bearings, leather rubber bearings, in, we can say, more traditional way. So I'm very curious to see if these techniques developed during this SAFER project can be used also in some cases in China. I know there was also a professor from Hong Kong, Professor Zhang, studying this typology, also using some rubber inside the soil. and then developing this geotechnical seismic isolation for developing country, but after not so many applications have been done. So the real new challenge is, from my point of view, is to have real application, some pilot projects in starting from Nepal, and maybe after extending the research and the application also to some cases in China. I would be very glad to have all of you in Fuzhou to discuss about this possibility, also to try to extend this SAFER project, also linking to some Chinese research project supported by the Ministry of Science and Technology and others. And starting from research, but also concentrating on real application. So I really hope we are able to avoid each time to start from zero. Every time a research start, most of the time we want to start again from the basic research, but sometimes we redo what was already done. So I hope there will be continuity in your research, going more also to the application of this of all you have developed, and extending this project also with other collaboration as collaboration with Asia. I finish here, and I thank you again for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Highly appreciated. Now it's time for Professor Camillo Nuti. Camillo is leading the Chinese-Italian collaboration for sustainable development and infrastructure. Has been in Nepal and field missions several times. Camillo's opinion is also highly valued, and we're looking forward for your comments.
Thank you, Tassos. First of all, I want to compliment the group, you and all the others, for the outstanding work that you have done, in unbelievable in such a short time, and very impressive. Many points are very interesting. I am speaking now from apparently from an isolated building rebuilt in an old town center in Italy to increase the resilience of the town, but this is just an hypothesis. I want to comment essentially on the evaluation of vulnerability of the schools that you have done, and on the app that you have produced, because I think that what is very important is to understand the situation in any building, in any country, and we must be aware. So what you have done is wonderful, and is an example, because you render this phase at the level of the local population and technicians, which is very important, because people are killed by building and not by earthquake. So this is what we have learned very much from our experience, and it is what I want to show. We had something similar in 2016. I want just to show you something. We have done a survey on school in that time around the central Italy, and many, about 130 schools, very different. I don't want to enter in any detail except show you that the majority of those schools were in masonry, but there were also reinforced concrete buildings, very advanced with respect to what we have seen in Nepal. But these are a school with some simple intervention before the earthquake, which apparently worked a little bit, and many other cases. But what we have seen, it is very important to show on the site what's happened to the various buildings. So the situation is basic, before and after the earthquake. So your application is very important. What we have seen is that in many cases, many buildings where people have done some intervention, those interventions were quite useless. You can see here the green is no damage, and the red is large damage. When you go far from the epicentral part, then you have larger damages. But it is important to note that for very badly done building, even when you make some intervention, you may prove to have some failure. Here, these are the failure that you have in Amatrice, in the very center town. In the black building, we just had tie road, but just doing tie road is useless. So every building needs its tuned intervention. So your work on this very, let's say, simple way to get the survey of the building, to me, is basic. And you have to work, I hope we can work all together still on the subject, to find tools easier and easier to use for people and for technicians and for the population and for the stakeholders to understand the situation of their buildings and of their communities, and to tune the good interventions. They can be base isolation, but also others tuned to the single buildings, up to reconstruction with sustainable materials. This is the greatest things that I learned from your work, and my contribution is giving you my open, I am at your disposition for future cooperation, and I hope that this will extend more and more all over the world. Thank you for the invitation, for your work.
Thank you very much, Camilo. It is true that problems are the same worldwide. So for construction that is similar, unreinforced masonry, we've seen in Italy so many times, but also in Nepal and in nearby countries. So to Dr. Kate Crowley, who is from the department, from the University of Edinburgh, and is a member of the board of the UK Alliance for Disaster Research. Kate, we're very pleased to have you with us to give us another external view about what we can improve and how we can implement what we're doing. And Camille, thanks.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me along today. It's been a pleasure listening to all the presentations from this project. It's certainly something that is very important, and one of the things that struck me is the holistic approach. So I'm a climate risk and resilience lecturer at the University of Edinburgh, but I'm also here just making a connection with the UK Alliance for Disaster Researchers as well. So we are a network of both practitioners and academics who work on anything related to disaster research. And we are very aware that there are a number of amazing projects going on at the moment, and we are very interested in understanding how we can support these and make better connections and share learning. So in the next couple of minutes, I'll just reflect on not only what the UK ADR might be able to help bring to this discussion, but also I just want to start off by discussing something that's really important that has struck me from this project. So I have worked on national risk assessment modelling projects for a number of years, and there is a very serious lack of empirical data when it comes to understanding risk modelling. So data that you have collected as part of this project is absolutely essential, and also raising another point, which is actually understanding what data to collect and creating templates and data collection tools is something that we really need to do as a community of disaster researchers and practitioners. And so I think that some of the things that you have created as part of this project have widespread application, and I feel that one of the main outcome from me, from my perspective from this project, is around the idea of bringing both the building vulnerability and social vulnerability through resilience together, and actually quantifying resilience and developing these templates and tools for collecting that empirical data is really, really important. And I would encourage the project to consider how they're going to share that information widely. There are national and global platforms for risk modeling that I'm sure would really benefit from that kind of data and working with them to develop new risk modeling techniques. So data standards are really important, and I think any kind of capacity building that is done during these types of projects and into the future needs to think about capacity building really carefully, and also about ensuring that we are collecting the right data and that we collect data for multiple uses. And so that's my other point, is that actually we also need to think about multi-hazards. And so what I really like about the project outcomes from this project is that they can be applied to multiple hazards, and that might be something to consider going forwards in the future. From the UK ADR point of view, last week, we had a series of webinars to discuss disaster research. And what really came out strongly was around achieving impact was in terms of partnerships. So not just academic partnerships, but working with local government, NGOs, and importantly, the private sector as well. It was also about having those partnerships to be mutually beneficial, so everyone has a clear and equitable voice. We also discussed issues around ethical issues and moral dilemmas around working in these large projects during a pandemic. You know, where is the point where we might need to step back and say, okay, what can we actually do to relieve the pressure on our partners? And the other thing that came out of the UK ADR workshops last week was this acknowledgement that there are a series of excellent projects running in the pool, and actually trying to connect those is an important next step. So I know that the Tomorrow's Cities Hub, which is a large project funded out of the UK, is running in Kathmandu, and there are already connections going on between this project and that one. And another project called Meteor as well, which is looking at multi-hazard events. I think also the other thing we need to bear in mind is at this difficult time, we are all juggling so many different things. And it's important that we support our early career researchers and our PhD students. And so through projects like this, I can also see capacity building opportunities to train some of our up and coming researchers and to share that information. So just to summarize, some key things from the UK ADR community. We're looking forwards towards next year, where we're also looking to COP26, which is being held in Scotland, where I'm from. We need to consider climate change and multi-hazards in all the projects we do. We need to connect across these multiple projects. There's a huge amount of learning and sharing that can be done, and that's already taking place. If you want to become a member of the UK ADR, please do look at the website. That is open to everyone, not just UK researchers and practitioners. And I think what we also need to do is start really looking at how we can collect these tools together, and maybe the UK ADR can be a platform where we can showcase some of these excellent projects, showcase some of our case studies, our success stories, and the toolkits that we are producing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. It's highly appreciated. And I mean, the work that you've done in the UK ADR, also in helping ourselves liaise with other projects in Nepal, is so important, because like you very well said, it is not just to collect or produce data. We need to share, we need to talk among ourselves. And I think the UK ADR is an excellent platform to materialize this. So I would like to encourage everyone to get in touch as much as possible. Coordination by UK ADR is highly beneficial for all. I guess we'll come back to this in a while in the Q&A session. Thanks once more. So last but not least, I would like to pass the virtual floor to Professor Guy Howard. Guy is the Chair for Environmental and Infrastructure Resilience at the University of Bristol. So Guy, please give us your thoughts.
Thanks, Tassos, and good afternoon and namaste, everybody. And thank you, particularly Tassos, for introducing who I am, so I don't need to do that. Perhaps what I should also reflect on is I spent 16 years working for the Department for International Development, as it was. So part of my comments today kind of reflect my experience from working in a policy role within government. There have been a lot of really great sort of comments and reflections, I think, already about the value of this research and some of the key things that have come out of it. I'm not going to repeat all of those. I'm just going to reflect on, for me, what I took away is two really big things. I think the first is the development of really easy to use, simple tools that allow very rapid assessments of schools and of buildings and infrastructure, and which then can be integrated into mechanisms either that allow prioritization at national or regional level, or potentially could be used at a very community level as a kind of scorecard to support community members think through where the problems lie. I find hugely valuable. I think reflecting on my experiences, that's exactly what you need. What you need are tools that are simple to use, that you can do things very quickly, that you can get quantitative data together, and you can use it to compare and prioritize and make decisions. So I think, for me, big outcomes. I think the second part is the very interdisciplinary approach that was adopted. And I think one of the great successes of this research project actually is that way of being able to really engage communities in discussions about what they need to think about in terms of how they build their resilience. Because ultimately, if you want to make change, it's not just governments and it's not just civil society and it's not just private sector that need to be involved. You've got to involve people themselves. You've got to engage populations in those discussions, because very often those are the people who need to make the key decisions that will improve resilience. I think it's already been said. I mean, I think some of the next steps clearly are going to be around trying to roll this approach out, these set of tools out more widely, trying to support really broad scale national assessments in Nepal, but I think also taking it to other countries. I mean, we've heard discussion about applying this in China. I think there would be plenty of scope also to explore how a simple tool like this can be deployed in countries like Bhutan, India, Pakistan, all of which face very similar problems with seismic risks and suffer the same problems for their schools and other buildings. So I think it would be really good to look at how it can be taken to other places. Now, the big challenge will always be resources. And I think the very first speaker highlighted that. And I think linked to that is making sure that there is genuine demand coming from governments to actually use these tools and to commit to real programs of looking at seismic safety of schools. And that means moving beyond ministries of education and moving beyond ministries or organizations dealing with disaster risk reduction, but ensuring that ministries of finance really understand the value of these approaches and are really willing to invest the resources through government to make sure that these national programs and assessments can be done. So overall, I mean, I think this is, and I've always thought this has been a very good and a very interesting project, which has some really good, excellent outcomes. And I really hope that this can be a springboard for future work for Tassos and his team, both within Nepal, but also more broadly. And I'll stop there so that we have maximize our time for Q&A.
Thanks very much, Guy. This is really very valuable, what you've said. I keep on taking notes. I'm just gonna show them in a while. In a magic way, we just finished on time, our 5 minutes short commentary. And actually now I would like to invite the audience, but also the panelists to set the questions and answer them. The way we have planned this to work is for the attendees to send questions through the Q&A. In this session, we won't be responding by text. So please allow me to take them one by one as they will be coming, and I will then read them and address them to the appropriate panelists. Panelists includes all the people who have presented in the first session, but also the external partners that commented in session 2. Ideally, I would like to ask the audience to address the question to somebody by writing the name. This is to this person, this question goes to this person, so that I can allocate it properly. Otherwise, I would need to have a call. To facilitate this discussion, I will share with you the notes that I was taking while facilitating this process. So I will share my screen for that to be on screen, and then probably we will be able to edit it together, because this is actually also a kind of the workshop conclusions that has to be co-developed, like everything we have been doing in this project. First set of comments and notes that I've taken while panelists were expressing their ideas and their input. Just to give you an overview, I've got a note of the positive outcomes. We'll read them at the end, but also the main and major challenges, the barriers that we see towards impact. And I kind of group them in scientific, management, and implementation aspects. So I'll leave that. So first question is, thank you for the webinar. It's informative and it's important. In light of world current challenges, this is quite generic, I think, so we can assume that we answer this live. Thanks very much for your kind words. There is one question here until new questions arrive. It is about if interdependencies of schools with other critical infrastructure have been taken into consideration. So I would like to address this first question to Jitendra until we've got further questions flowing in. Jitendra?
Yes, very much that's the case. So in the resilience framework we presented, there is one aspect which says non-structural health. And that's one of the areas where we address this particular issue. So whether the school can continue to function, say, without water, without electricity. And in the modern times, we will say communication, the internet. The other thing we have is the access and use. So which has questions relating to how children, how teachers get to school, whether those paths are blocked by other hazards, for example. It may be flooding, it may be rain, it may be landslide. So yes, we have tried to think what can affect the functioning of the school and incorporated in this.
Thank you very much, Jitendra. There is a question that is addressed to Haley and Yadav. I would like to invite both of them to give feedback if you wish. It is whether this effort will be included in the GADRES Comprehensive School Safety Framework. Haley?
Hi. Yes, I mean, it's as you may well be aware, so ARAP are kind of part of the GADRES partners, so it's definitely something we will share with GADRES, and we are already doing some work with GADRES on resilience schools, systems, so this work can definitely be shared amongst GADRES partners, absolutely. Thanks, Liz.
Mm-hmm. Yadav, would you like to add something on this?
Thank you, Liz. Yeah, this is a very good point. As we are working with the GADRES, so it's a good point. So better to share with the GADRES and include in the GADRES as well. Thank you. Yeah.
I also see a question that has not been answered, and it's highlighted as answered, but I would like to bring it up again. It's by Astra Pudel. It says, in the context of Nepal, according to the experience of the Gorkha earthquake, it is also gathered significantly as temporary settlement. This project is interesting and could be a good tool for emergency planning. Interdependence of the infrastructure in both technical and social levels should be incorporated. That goes effectively in relevance to the previous question. There has been a stream of other questions that education of communities using the tool, how is it envisaged to develop engagement with those on the ground and Jitendra has explained that Save the Children are engaging with the local communities. We have also organized sessions with Save the Children in order to update the tool and implement it in a more efficient way. There is a new question or point coming from Narayan. Narayan has also worked very hard for this project and is asking, very happy to be part of this great team around the globe with motivated work for future resilient school communities. Is there any strategy already developed to carry on these research outcomes for implementation? I can also answer this, but I would like to invite Surya, if you would also like to comment, and then I'll build on that.
Well, Tassos, thank you. At this moment, perhaps I cannot answer on behalf of the project, but I can answer from NSET point of view. We have to, no other way. There is no other way. We have to. And for example, we are several organizations working in this project, and some are already working in implementation areas such as the Save the Children or such as the NSET and a couple of other. And there are a couple of very good outcomes generated through this project, such as some of the retrofit technologies already identified and tested by this project, such as some of the tools applications, the school assessment tool or the community resilience tool that has been developed. And we have to start engaging with communities and local governments also. For example, now the schools are now governed, most of the schools are now governed by the local authorities. And if we are engaged with local authorities for the application of these school assessment tools, then local authorities will be able to understand, not just use the tool, but local authorities will be able to understand the elements of vulnerabilities, elements of resilience for the schools. And that will be very effective for the schools and for the local communities to think towards how to reduce the risks and how to enhance the resilience. So there is no other way. And from NSET point of view, I can say that wherever we work, we extend and we continue the use of these applications already developed, and we will try to enhance the applications also through new inputs coming from the communities and local authorities. Thank you, Tassos.
Thank you very much, Surya. And one of the reasons that I asked you to answer this question first is because this is something that we have discussed extensively with NSET, because as you very well point out, it is not just about using what we have developed. Kate also mentioned previously that data are harvested to be used by others. So data need to be used, data need to be shared. Tools need to be used at large scale. New methodologies need to be implemented, otherwise they don't have any impact, as it was stated previously. But the most important thing, in my humble opinion, is also to hand over the ability, the capacity to the local people to use these tools and this data themselves without necessarily the need for the University of Bristol to hosting in the server data to be able to intervene here or there. Of course, we would be delighted, and we will keep on working with all of you, because I think this project has developed such a momentum that we will certainly keep on working together. But it is equally important, gradually, all this ability and capability to be transferred to Nepal so that we can have just an advisory role or engage as needed. I believe this is one of the most important aspects of community and national resilience after international projects are funded, to have a transfer of not only of know-how, because transfer of know-how actually was bilateral. We also learned out of this process, but transfer of authority, if you like, of organization planning from the side of the UK in this case, which was the funding side, to the developing country, which is Nepal. And I think based on the experiences that we had all these years, I was really amazed by the level of knowledge and the persistence of the people in Nepal. So you definitely have the capacity and the technical, scientific, and management skills to run it with or without us. And I believe this is a great next step, the most important thing we need to do right after. I wasn't planning to answer any questions, but I'm sorry I couldn't resist this because I think it is very important. So I will flag, Narayan, your question as answered live. There are other questions that you can see in Q&A. While waiting for more questions to come, I was wondering if any of the panelists would like to to say something additional, and I will call you to do this in a minute after we answer a question by Emeritus Professor Colin Taylor. Colin has been the head of our group for many years. He is known, I believe, to all of you, and he has helped us tremendously in getting the momentum to be doing such things that we currently do. So Colin is asking, you've got established a nice platform for long-term holistic research and an implementation program that delivers profound societal impact over a 10-year route map. You should be ambitious and go for a very large funding program of a number of millions. This scale of funding is necessary to deliver this proportional impact. I wonder if any of the panelists would like to comment on this. I would only say that Colin is right, we have to think big, but the most important thing I believe he highlights is that once we reach this level of development, as we have done so far, with a little bit or with more funding, the effect is certainly non-linear and disproportional. And this is something that I couldn't agree more. We shouldn't start from scratch. We have developed a number of methodologies, approaches, tools, and data sets. So with a little bit of effort and with a little bit of more funding, we can take it further. Can I invite someone from the panel to either respond to this question or raise another point?
Tassos?
Yes, Flavia.
I would like generally, first of all, to thank all the attendees and comment on this aspect. It would be very important to show and to make sure we can showcase all the good results that we have obtained with this project and with many other projects within the broad GCRF program, because I think there is a genuine need of new funding, and we need to find a way for further work to be funded in this area of international development generally. And I think showcasing the results and the good impact we have been doing and that we can do using what we have done is one of the way to make sure that this can be followed up in a positive and effective way.
Thank you very much,
Thanks.
Flavia. Max, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I'd like to second Flavia's thanks to everyone. I thought it was really useful for all of us to get feedback from you all and to point out the challenges. And following also Flavia's point about future work, I think we had some really good suggestions already, and one of those was multi-hazard and multi-risk. I think studying the potential effects of earthquakes during pandemics is an obvious one, and one that deserves a lot of attention, especially as this virus isn't going anywhere soon and might reappear in different forms in the next years and decades. But also there are obviously a lot of interactions between hazards and risks, and we're just at the very beginning of exploring those. I'd like to point out some work that SAFER has done that wasn't presented here, which is the potential of liquefaction and how that potential depends on the water table within Kathmandu Valley. And of course, that is tied very much to season and climate. There's other obvious multi-hazard risks that we haven't included here, such as the link between earthquakes and landslides, And there's many others. So I suggest that that's maybe a very fruitful way to continue for us and to seek further funding. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Max. And I would also like to stress that most of us from the University of Bristol are civil engineers, but your contribution from the School of Earth Sciences was really a great opportunity to do multidisciplinarity at our university level. Hi.
Yeah, thanks, Tassos. I just wanted to respond to Colin's point, and I think, I suppose the message I'd give to the team is I think you need to separate out the research and the implementation as you move forward. And I would fully agree that you have a very good platform for ongoing research, and I think that's important to continue to build on and to look for funding operations or opportunities. If I put my former hat on though, I will say that as somebody who funds projects, the thing that irritates people most of all is researchers whose main conclusion is that they need to do more research as the outcome, and then seek more money for research. So I think what I get a sense of is that what you have now is a set of tools that really can start to be used at an implementation side. And I think therefore the trick is to start building, using your networks and your relationships with people like the World Bank, with the government of Nepal, with other funders, to really look at how you could be then supporting rolling out the use of these tools at a much larger scale, which may not be research per se, but ends up by being a fantastic impact story. But I think the way to deal with the issues is to separate them slightly, because otherwise you risk putting funders off because they just feel that you're just asking them to fund more research when what they're interested in is delivery. Thank you.
I fully agree on this point, Guy. Hayley?
Yeah, I think I was just going to echo Guy's point. I couldn't agree more. I think we have developed some really useful tools that can be used in Nepal and can be, contextualized to other countries. But if we're focusing on Nepal, there are some very large scale, large investment programs being undertaken currently in Nepal. And I think as a first step would be trying to understand whether some of these calls could potentially be integrated into some existing or future programs to prove how they work and support existing programs on increasing the impact.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Hayley, and both comments by yourself and Guy. Surya?
Can I add one point? Maybe not exactly on this aspect, but some other aspect actually on the continuity and sustainability aspect. One of the key or critical aspect is for the continuity of studies and adding on to the current studies. The important aspect is the data and tools that the project has developed. And if somebody wants, later on somebody wants to build onto the data that this project has generated or build onto the tools that this project has generated, I think there should be some way to refer to or use those data and tools. I think this is something that you and us need to think that how we can have that possibility allowed into the system. For example, where does the data repository lie and how people can access to the tools so that people can improve the tools. For example, we just talked about the multi-hazard aspects, and if somebody wants to do further development on the tools, then people should not reinvent the whole thing, but they should be able to build on whatever already done. So that's why I think that this is a very important aspect to think on the sustainability and continuity of whatever done already.
Very valid point, Surya. Andreas, please comment, and then we will just switch to a couple of questions that have just arrived.
Oh, are you sure we have time?
Yeah, we do that.
Okay, we'll be short. So going back to what Guy said, I mean, we're researchers. What do you expect us to do, right? I mean, we're going to need money to do what we do. But okay, on more serious note, yes, I agree with what people said. The implementation now is the next step, and that's the big challenge. And as an outsider for Nepal, and just going back to right after the earthquake, I saw there was a lot of effort, a lot of money, but people were doing things in parallel, isolated from themselves, without any coordination. So there was a lot of money poured into the country, but I'm not sure how effective that was. And I don't know that it's safer's job to coordinate people. That probably has to come from Nepal, but it's very important to try to get things coordinated and people on board and have a strategy, as opposed to have separate different groups trying to do the same thing or reinventing the wheel every time, as Surya just said.
Yeah, very, very valid point, actually. And the reason that we're holding this roundtable, in fact, is to explore all these ideas, brainstorm, and make sure that we keep the momentum in translating research to implementation. We have two open questions and one that has partially been answered. I'll start from the last. It asks whether we can use the school assessment tool in a way that it is integrated with the EMIS classification software already rolled out by the Ministry of Education. And Haley, of course, answered very validly that we have to do that in order to ensure continuity of data use and implementation. I don't know if either Dr. Yubraj Proudyal or Mr. Iman Aryan-Stresta would like, from the side of the education sector, to comment on how we can integrate EMIS with our tools.
Thank you for your question. Yes, we can integrate this in image system. For that, we have to prepare a separate platform. Then, if it is integrated in the image system, then holistically we can get the information that Ministry of Education also thinking to implement the comprehensive school safety program under the comprehensive school safety master plan. That some minimum package there to implement the minimum package. Such type of assessment also included there, and several questionnaires that were used in SIDA assessment. That also we are planning to incorporate those tools, and some tools may be common to this SIDA, and we can implement this definitely.
Thanks very much. We're also very keen to have our tools implemented and actually be used at large. This is the purpose. You?
Thank you. Thank you, Tas. Actually, the data is very important. What we understood from after this 2015 World Cup as well, yes, at the beginning, that we talked with the World Bank and then we developed the SIDA. From that SIDA, and we collected the many, the data of the school, the damaged school building. So it's very important, those data, based on those data, we developed the priority investment plan as well, and also investment plan. So now we are implementing the program in the holistic approach, with support from ADB and the JICA, of course, from some part from the World Bank as well. So to make a holistic program, the data is very important, and also the harmonized tool that we need to develop, because the coordination, what I feel, between the development partners as well, between the different organizations as well, and also between the coordination between the government and the development partners, and also different, the researchers, the institution as well. We have a big gap, big problem, to make some harmonized tool and to coordinate each other. This is very, very important in this project as well. We feel happy, this is the holistically designed, and also some, the component, we government counterpart also some way, we involve in this project as well. So we feel some ownership, about this project as well. That's why it's very important in the next phase. What I feel, if we link with the government, systems to implement such kind of program, then it will be, the output will be much higher than what we expected. And so in the mainstreaming is very important. But that's my the last the session for you. Thank you.
I think we need to organize a set of additional meetings to facilitate this implementation further, and the further discussion with you, I think, with you all, I mean, from Nepal, would be crucial in materializing this. We're very keen and very open. I think this project doesn't stop just because formally it reached the end of its financial life. It is now that it is starting. And we will get in touch with you all to move forward. Let me just walk through some important questions that have arrived in the meantime. One is for Professor Maski. Whether wouldn't including material and geometric nonlinearity makes the design more complex? This relates to something that you said previously, Professor.
Thank you, Tassos. Now, flatly speaking, now this definitely, I mean, considering the material nonlinearity and geometric nonlinearity makes the design more complex. That's true, but that question is not very much relevant in this shop, in my opinion, because we're not discussing about the structural etc. We're talking about the seismic vulnerability and seismic resilience, etc. But to answer that, frankly speaking, that's true. I mean, it would be more complex and it will be more expensive if we consider material nonlinearity and geometric nonlinearity. That's more than that I cannot answer there. Thank you.
I would also agree, but as we all know, that the process is that this research flies into the codes, propagates into the codes, and then through the codes it comes back to the local engineer in a more simplified yet rigorous way. So I think this is implicitly answered by reality itself, the way we set up the codes. But it was a valid comment. There's one more comment by Vivek. The project has been a great collaboration, producing fruitful results. Nick, would you like to answer whether this low-cost base isolation technique can be implemented in reducing earthquake demand, and if you can suggest any ways that we can further reduce the cost, perhaps by lighter sliding slabs or multiple layers of sliding or other materials? Would you like to comment on this?
Hey, hi. I think this comment has been made by a number of people in various meetings, and I partially wonder whether the lab tests were misleading, because the slab in the lab tests were very, very thick, far thicker than anywhere reasonably would make in a real case. And the reason was we had to carry the building with a crane onto the shake table, so it had to be designed in a way that a slab would not normally be designed. So the slab thickness would be just a conventional thickness for a ground slab. But also we did tests on, do we need the whole slab? And in the publication we made in the earthquake spectra paper, I think, we suggested that it is possible to remove the ground slab and replace it with beams, ground beams, underneath the walls. However, this may not, in discussion with Arup, we decided that this probably wouldn't necessarily reduce cost, because you need more form work. So I think the slab is, but let me put it this way: voids in the slab or lightweight blocks in the slab are certainly things that could reduce the volume of concrete that is required. I think once the team at Arup have completed the once the team at Arup have completed the draft guidelines, then we'll have a better idea of what the increased cost will be for the specific case of the archetypical building we're designing. So, I mean, yeah.
You raised something very important here, Nick, that with Arup International Development and the aid of Timur Han, we are preparing design guidelines for the implementation of this local solution. And this, of course, by nature, is written in a way that will address all practical issues about utilities, costs, sizes, dimensions, processes, sketches, design drawings, everything. So this should be coming. And like I said, there is a series of developments and improvements and updates for our tools that we're releasing continuously until the end of this year. So please stay tuned on our website to have access of this material. I don't know if there's any other question or anybody from the panel would like to add something. I'll leave it open for a few seconds. If not, I would like to share my screen with what I've realized as perhaps conclusions out of this extremely interesting, in my opinion, workshop. Because I think a final workshop should be a process that we all keep on learning. This is endless, really. So all this feedback, I think, was tremendously useful. And let me just share my screen so that I can read to you what I have noted, and then you can probably add or comment on things that I've written down. So in terms of positive outcomes to build upon, I noted that many of our panelists and also attendees commented on the low-cost solutions for design of new school buildings, particularly for rural areas, with the performance objective, of course, to be life safety. The benefit of the resilience of the educational system in a holistic way. The ease of use of our school assessment tools, either for structural health or community resilience. The formation of a forum of international experts for disaster risk mitigation. The development of new hazard mapping, the geodatabase, all the empirical data that we harvested, and our effort to quantify resilience, which, as we all know, it's a very difficult task on its own. In terms of challenges towards impact that are split into scientific, managerial, and implementation aspects, on the science side, we have to deal with realistic material properties, of course, introducing in a rigorous way their uncertainty, the distribution of their properties in space, and also in space, I mean, within the structure, but also across the country. The fact that materials age in a way that due to low quality control, it's hard to assess on site, and therefore we need to take that into consideration in everything that we design. The challenge for more research in Nepal and beyond, with the potential pilot construction of a local school. This is something that we would need to discuss a little bit further on, because by building one, if we see it, we will believe it. Like I said, we are preparing construction guidelines exactly for this purpose. Develop new ground motion prediction equation relationships. Of course, think multi-hazard, and one of these hazards is also pandemic. And it is really great to try to test our metrics towards or against other hazards. In terms of management, I noted that our quality audience and panelists mentioned, of course, the very pragmatic issue of limited financial resources, that we need to strengthen our management practices to be more uniform, vertically, if you like, in the educational sector, but also horizontally in the country. How we can manage resources after a need is identified by assessment. So if we find that a school needs to be strengthened pretty soon, what is the pathway to delivery, and how can we secure resources to make that happen, either for individual school or for a set of schools, a portfolio of schools, or schools at a country level. Of course, good governance, to ensure good governance towards disaster risk reduction, which is in fact, key for every single country, not necessarily Nepal or developing countries. It is key even in the States. It's a huge, huge task that we need to ensure good governance, particularly post-crisis. And then the challenge to train researchers, train practitioners, and effectively extrapolate knowledge from one side that develops this knowledge to the implementation side. Talking about implementation, of course, one step for implementation is to reinforce building code. As we have discussed, also Professor Maskey mentioned this, Paul addressed that. We aim to share our findings in terms of hazard with a committee that deals with seismic hazard assessment in Nepal, but also good construction practices through NSET and communities for professional engineering in the country. It is true that sometimes with a little bit of effort, a little bit of improvement, technically speaking, the risk is reduced greatly. So it's not a linear relationship between strengthening a school and achieving or skipping, if you like, collapse. The benefit is disproportional, and we have to make people aware of this. With a little bit of investment, a little bit of know-how, things can be improved dramatically. And of course, engaging school communities in building capacity and developing awareness is key, because without the people who live in the schools, who know exactly what the problems are at the community level, no solution can be really accepted, of course, and decided. Self-assessment, that's another implementation aspect, needs to take place periodically. Like we say in developed countries, that big infrastructure needs to be maintained regularly, and checks are yearly or at a given time frame. Same for self-assessment of community and structural health. We need to have a periodic inspection of the portfolio and to be able to understand how the safety and the capacity of our portfolio evolves in time. Of course, we need to promote our tools to be developed, that we develop at different levels, which is very important. That's exactly what we have been discussing during this Q&A. Repair and strengthening with local materials that are available and accepted, because there are solutions that might not necessarily be accepted or not even feasible. So this is something that I presented maybe in my first slide in this session, and we have received great help in materializing this by our Nepalese partners. So engaging along all the levels of implementation is so important. Of course, we need to convince and engage people, and then develop the technical manpower to develop capacity. It was mentioned by our partners from the government that if you don't have the technical manpower, this is just a fictitious plan, you will never implement it. And the methods have also, they need to be accepted by the country or the stakeholder as well, not just the final end users, which is the school community. So the government needs to understand what we're doing, but at the same time needs to find resources to fund potential extra costs, because truth is that strengthening costs. That's exactly why we need to prioritize when we have limited resources, to do things that matter and use in the best way the resources that we've got. And of course, we need to promote and use the tools developed at the local and national level, as we discussed. How this data will be stored, how this data will be used in Nepal from the practitioners community, from the government, but also from the scientific community in the UK and beyond, to liaise with the government to ensure practical implementation of the low school seismic isolation, and perhaps explore implementation to nearby countries with similar construction practices like China, Bhutan, India, perhaps countries also in Latin America, which in a way have similar construction techniques, and even Africa, I would say, based on our experience in Malawi. And then integrate the smart apps with a comprehensive school safety program, EMIS, further decouple, of course, implementation from research, and keep on talking further, so that this project is not the end, but it's actually a great start based on our momentum to do more things together. So these are the notes that I've kept. I don't know if you would like to add something on this. Thanks, Christian, for your comment, your good feedback. Looking forward. Likewise, we look forward to working and seeing you, actually. And this is just further updates that come with good words that we are very honored to receive. So is there anybody else, as we've reached the end of the webinar, that would like to comment on the points that I've just presented before we close? If there is no other comment, I would like to once more thank you all for your participation, particularly the speakers, our friends from Nepal, the external experts, all the attendees who stayed for 3 hours continuously. This webinar will be uploaded on the web because it's a library for all to go back and understand better, contextualize better, and try to do the best we can to extrapolate our research to Nepal and beyond. With that, I would like to thank you everyone, to thank our research administrator, Joe Gildersleeve, for the excellent organization, and to thank you all for your attendance. Our warmest regards to our Nepalese friends.